Hello everyone and good day. This is a continuation of our series regarding basic CSS and welcome to the Roy Tech channel. In the last video, I've explained the different display properties as they are used in labels and paragraphs and spans and divs. I have particularly enumerated and described the display properties inline, block, and inline block. And I have emphasized that spans and labels are inline and paragraphs and divs are block. You can also change a position display property called inline block. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss the position property. Before I'm going to demonstrate the difference, let me enumerate all of them. The default display property of any element is called static, which means that it cannot be positioned regardless of whatever you do. The static element stays according to their relative position in the document flow. And then the second position property is called relative. A relative element can be positioned according to its original position in its parent. It's not according to the borders of its parent, but according to its position in the original flow of the document. So relative to its original position, according to the document flow in its parent. The third is called absolute. Absolute can be positioned not according to its original position, but relative to the browser, not the parent. So making an element absolute will make it prodigal, which means that it escapes the control of its parent and will use the browser screen, okay, as the relative uh, 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 relative screen where its position is taken. Okay, I will show you that in the actual demo. The next position is called fixed. Fixed is like absolute. It will also be prodigal. It will not be constrained by its parent. However, unlike absolute, it does not scroll along. Okay. The last is sticky. Sticky is like relative, but it stops scrolling when it reaches the scrolling point. It becomes fixed. It will convert to fixed. However, sticky does not work if it's inside a container. It will only work outside a container. Okay, and it must have a scrolling point position where it will stop scrolling when it reaches a certain top or left or right position. Okay, so now I have here uh, uh, a document. Let us we'll remove the positions first, no? Which I've already tested myself, but this time let me remove the positions first. Okay. Now, before showing this, I have made the following uh, classes. No, a box will make a div a border of 1 pixel. A small box will make a div 150 by 150. A medium box will be 250 by 250, and a large box will be 500 by 500. A red box will give it a background color of red, a yellow box a background color of yellow, and the same as green and purple box. Okay, so let me show you how it runs according to uh, okay, its browser display. Okay, here it is. So this is div 1, this is div 2, this is div 3. Div 1 and div 2 are small boxes. Div 3 is a medium box. By the way, let me put back div 4 inside. I have placed it outside, no? Outside a container. So all of them are inside a container. Okay, so we have this. Now all of them will have a default position of static. Now let's try to change the position of div 1. So we have here div 1. We'll assign it a top of 20 px and a left of 30 px. Okay. So assigning it a top of 20 px will move it downwards because it will be like assigning it a top margin, and assigning it a left of 30 px will move it to the right because it's like assigning it a left margin. Let's try to refresh that. So take note that item 1 doesn't change because its position is still static. The only way we can move it is to change its position property to relative. This is relative to its original position. Okay, so for example, if this is the original position, okay, this will be moved, okay, 20 pixels downwards, its original position, and 30 pixels to the right, okay, with respect to its original position. Let's try to refresh that. Okay, let's go there. Div 1, maybe we haven't saved this. Let's save. Okay, yes, yes, that's right. No, so anyway, 20 pixels is the default. We can move it further downwards. So we say 40px. I save it. Take note that it has moved downwards. Okay, and take note that it's relative to its original position, not the borders of its parent. Okay, now or rather the third position which I'd like to show you is absolute. Okay, absolute. Okay, to make this to illustrate the point more clearly, let us change the position using the right property. Okay, so let's make a right property of 20 pixels on the top of 10. Okay, TV2 is the yellow box. Let's save this and refresh. Take note that the yellow box has changed position. It has become absolute. When it's absolute, it has become prodigal of its parent, which means that it will go out of its parent. So the top position here, that is rather the right position 20 pixels here, is that 20 pixels from the edge of the browser, not the edge of its parent. Let's try to do that in item 1 and try to see what's there. What's the difference? For example, instead of using the left 30 pixels, we'll use the right. Remember that div 1 is relative and div 2 is uh, absolute. Let's try to do that. Now, div 1 has moved to the left because it's to the right with respect to its original position. Item 2 is to the right with respect to the browser screen. Okay? Now, before I proceed, let me show you how uh, the absolute property changes if we change the position of its parent. Currently, the container div, which is the parent of everybody, is static. What will happen if we will make it relative? Okay, let's refresh. Take note that uh, item 2 has lost its being prodigal. It's no longer prodigal. It's now under the constraint of its parent. Take note that also that there's a difference between the relative position of item 1 and item 2 because item 2 has now become relative. Item 1 is also relative but relative to its original position. Item 2, however, is relative now to its parent. So the borders of its parent is considered here. So for example, if you look at that, no, both will assign 30 pixels, rather 20 pixels to both of them. Okay, and we have assigned them a different tops, so we can still see. Okay, so take note that item 1 did not move 20 pixels to the right of its parent, or to with respect to its parent, but to its original position. So that's the main difference of between the relativity of an absolute and a relative component when the parent becomes relative. Okay, so when the parent becomes relative, the absolute property of its children is nullified, but they become relative to the position of the borders of the parent. Let us remove this. Okay, so we have discussed static, relative, and absolute. Now let's use the next property, which is fixed. Let's put it to the green box. Fixed is like absolute. Okay, let's move it 200 pixels downwards. Okay, and a right of 10 pixels. So that's the green box. Take note. No, this is the green box, and we move it like that. So take note that like item 2, it has become prodigal. Okay, it has gone out of control of its parent. So when it moves, no, what did we do? No, I'm sorry. Div 3 should be fixed. We forgot that, no? Fixed. Okay, let me save. So div 3 has become prodigal, and the main difference is it doesn't scroll. Okay. Now what happens if we make the parent relative? Will fixed properties become lose its being prodigal? That's one of the main other difference also between fixed and absolute, because when the parent becomes relative, the absolute now loses its being prodigal, but the fixed property is still prodigal, which means it's not constrained by its parent. Okay, so I hope you see the difference, no? Okay, let's move this back to static. So fixed is absolutely prodigal, whether its parent is relative or not. Okay, it's like absolute and will not be included in the scrolling. Okay, so the last property which I will demonstrate is the position sticky. Okay, so sticky is like relative, but it stops scrolling when its scroll position has been reached. Shall we say we'll set it to 10 pixels, no? And let's try to save this first and try to refresh. Take note, uh, item 4 does not change. That is because it will not shift to sticky unless it is outside a container div. So therefore, we will put it out of our container div. So absolutely, it no longer becomes a child of the container div. So it's outside the control. Okay, and let's refresh this. So that's now outside the control of the parent. And when we move, it stops moving when it reaches the scroll point. It becomes fixed because it stops at 10 px. Let's try to do it at 30 px. Let's refresh this. So it's like that. And when it reaches 30 px, it stops scrolling. It becomes like fixed. So take note, sticky is like fixed. It will stop scrolling only when it reaches the scrolling point or the end point. And then it will only work if it's outside a containing div. Okay? It will not work if it's inside the div. So that's all about it. No? Positions, the different positions. It's a very useful property because it will allow us to position different elements or components of our web page and prevent them from overlapping the content of each other. I hope you see my point. In the next video, I'm going to explain the display property called grids. Bye for now and see you in the next video.